This woman once lived a life of luxury, admired as the perfect noble lady of the empire. Her name was Edele Lancaster, the Duchess of the powerful Lancaster family. From childhood, she was taught that elegance, grace, and obedience were the essence of a noble woman. She fulfilled every expectation, marrying Duke Lancaster and maintaining her dignity as his devoted wife. But one day, her flawless world collapsed. Her husband, blinded by ambition, led a rebellion against the empire. His forces were crushed, his name erased, and the House of Lancaster fell into ruin. Edele, the once glorious Duchess, was branded the wife of a traitor, and the people who once bowed before her now spat her name with disgust. One night, as one kingdom launched an attack on another, the noble Duchess sat alone in her room, praying softly, "Please, take me into your arms without too much pain." She whispered again, her voice trembling, "Allow me not to waver before pain." And continue to have faith in God's plans and endure. Outside, chaos erupted. Soldiers shouted, "The gate is open. Arrest the traitors." Edele, calm amid the uproar, murmured to herself, "Pain is fleeting, but the fruit of patience will be sweet." Moments later, a commander rushed in as one of the soldiers yelled, "This is the only room remaining." Another barked, "Break down the door." The door burst open, and there she was, a beautiful lady sitting gracefully on a chair, her posture still regal even as the world crumbled around her. The soldiers laughed, one sneering, "Haha, my. So the rumors were true. She really is a beauty. So even in the midst of all this mess, you're still a duchess, is that it?" The commander stepped forward and called out, "Duchess Edele Lancaster." Edele looked up at him, disbelief flickering in her eyes. "Are you going to execute me here?" she asked quietly. He drew his sword and held it to her neck, replying, "No, by the order of the emperor, I will take you alive as a prisoner." Her thoughts screamed, when did it all go wrong? As she sat in that old chair, Edele thought to herself, "Accepting my share of accountability in this old chair, I pondered the honor and pride of a noble. I foolishly endured through everything for such silly things, but I can't even die as I wish." The perfect lady, Edele Lancaster. She hasn't been the Duchess of Lancaster for too long. 3 years ago, memories flooded her mind. She recalled a grand banquet where whispers floated through the air. "Look over there. It's Edele Canyon." Another voice added, "I heard she is engaged to Duke Lancaster." Even if the Lancasters are one of the 4 most prominent families, it's still distasteful. To marry such an old duke, precisely. This year, the duke turned a hush. "Someone might hear you." More importantly, just look at how steadfast she is. Another lady whispered, "My goodness, does this not bother her in the least?" I don't know what she's thinking. Count Canyon's only daughter, Edele Canyon, born to be perfect. There were 4 extraordinarily powerful families in the empire, and Edele, raised and groomed to be married into one of them, had finally fulfilled her purpose. She had lived a year and 8 months as the old duke's wife. Who could have guessed that this perfect lady was nothing more than a means to bind 2 powerful families together? Yet, because of the duke's treasonous plan to declare independence from the empire, she would become the wife of a traitor. The emperor chuckled upon hearing of her capture, his voice dripping with mockery, finally. The greatest spoils of this war. Duke Lancaster's second wife, Edele Lancaster. Edele's thoughts were bitter and cold. All my life, I was born and raised for a single purpose. I collapsed where I was standing because I was too afraid to run. I couldn't bear the thought of facing my death on the floor, so I dragged an old chair over to sit, all because of my feudal honor. It may be all I have left, but still, I can't crumble to the very end. Laughter echoed through the hall as one man shouted, "Your Majesty, give the treacherous criminal to me." Another bellowed, "No. I probably took more enemy lives than him. Sir, take pity on this old widower." A woman's voice joined in mockery. "Why don't we decide who gets the prisoner with a duel?" Someone sneered. "I guess no one here has any dignity left." Nobles whispered among themselves, but it's understandable. Edele Lancaster was praised as the perfect lady of nobility. Well, she's nothing more than a slave now. All the more reason not to hold back. Emperor Demarcus Tuberine chuckled and said, My. I almost forgot about the greatest contributor in suppressing the rebellion when he's standing right here. Isn't that right? Tell me, Laslo, are you not in need of a woman? If you would like, I will give the greatest spoils of war to you. The nobles murmured bitterly. She got married to the wrong man, and now she's ruined. And that commoner, he's thriving, isn't he? He's been made a count, and now this. Why does His Majesty want to endow him, of all people, with the greatest spoils of war? Edele thought. From what I recall, he used to be a mercenary. Then again, what does that have anything to do with me now? At this point, he's no different to me than any other knight. However, the man who brought me here, Laslo Krissus, the master of the Empire's largest mercenary guild, Calliope, and the man who was made count at the young age of 27 because of his military achievements. To the traditional nobles, he is by far the biggest threat among the nouveau riche noblemen on the Emperor's side. However, from what I heard, the nobles who treat mercenaries like delinquents look down on him and treat him like a commoner. Laslo spoke calmly. I'm not sure. My maids are short-handed, though. The Emperor roared with laughter. Ha! Ha ha! Are you saying you want to use the woman who was once a duchess as a maid? Laslo replied without hesitation. I don't have any other use for her. The Emperor smirked, pleased by the cruelty of it all. Good, very good. I will endow Edele Lancaster to Count Laslo Krissus, who is in need of more maids, and as the hall erupted in laughter, Edele trembled, her heart turning to ice as she whispered a final, desperate plea, all-powerful Para. Is this what I get for being patient? 3 years ago, in the house of Count Canyon, a storm of voices echoed through the grand halls. Edele's mother shouted, Edele Canyon, stop being so stubborn. Do you think you can really defy your father? Edele hesitated, her voice trembling, but mother, the Duke is even older than father, so how could I marry? Her mother sighed deeply, trying to reason with her daughter. No, there isn't a better suitor out there. He's had a lover for a very long time now, and his children are all grown up. He wouldn't try to sleep with you to have more children. Besides, when he dies, you will be left with all of his assets. Edele's heart wavered as she whispered, you don't even know when he will die. I would probably be at least 30 by then. Her mother's tone sharpened. You really don't get it, do you? When you become the Duchess, even your father will bow down before you. What is it you don't like about this arrangement? Becoming the Duchess of one of the 4 most prominent families, but Edele, desperate, turned toward her father and pleaded, Please, father. This isn't what I want. Please reconsider. Yet the decision had already been made. It was a destiny decided long ago. Her father's furious roar filled the room. How dare you? If anything, you should be more actively involved in this family's endeavors. Do you have any idea what kind of humiliation I had to endure so you could marry the Duke? I of all people am doing all this for you, you worthless girl. Or have you forgotten why I raised you? Edele clenched her fists, her thoughts trembling in silence. I can finally be free from my father, she thought. I can leave the house of Count Canyon. That was the only thought in my mind as I endured everything. I was relieved the Duke was too busy with his lover to lay a finger on me. So I was patient. Despite all the jeering from the people of the Lancaster family, I persisted. I kept dozens and dozens of account books while managing hundreds of staff. And I kept my patience. I entertained guests who visited day after day and hosted endless parties, and I held firm. I didn't slip up once. I kept up the act with a smile on my lips, all for the moment I would finally be free. However, perhaps such efforts were all for nothing. Then, one day, a man came running toward her, shouting, You must run, my lady. Edele blinked in confusion. What do you? But he cut her off in panic. The Emperor's army is storming this place. Her mind froze as realization dawned. Up until that moment, I had no idea, she thought. I was the only one kept in the dark about Duke Lancaster's plans to declare independence. The plot he hatched without me failed. And I realized something while running down the empty corridors. She dashed through the halls, her breath ragged. I don't see anything. Where did all the staff go? I was the lord that would keep the Emperor's army at bay. The kind of life I longed for was one filled with the warmth of others and supportive validation. But even though I was in charge of all those account books and staff, only one butler bothered to warn me. It turns out I never truly held any part of this large estate in my hands. I became the perfect lady my father always wanted me to be. My life that was praised was nothing but an empty shell. Perhaps all the pain I endured were signs from God telling me to run. Now imprisoned, Edele sat in silence when a guard barked, "Now stay quiet." She lowered her gaze, thinking, who knew something worse than death awaited me. They call me the spoils of war, but in reality, I am nothing more than a slave. They just call me that because slavery has long been abolished. Inside the dark cell, Duke Lancaster's eldest daughter, Lauren Lancaster, shouted bitterly, Are you still acting all high and mighty even now? Well, aren't you the incredible and perfect lady? Her sister, Daria Lancaster, added venomously, she's always been like that from the moment she got married. Her own family sold her off, but she's always acting like she's a real duchess. Count Canyon ratted on everything. I'd bet she helped her father, too. We made you the Duchess, you traitor. You ungrateful wench, Edele sighed softly, thinking, it's not the first time they've expressed their disapproval of me, but they've never been so crude before. They're worn out and have completely given up. She spoke gently, her tone calm amidst the chaos. Why don't you get some sleep, Lauren? You too, Daria. Inside, she thought, I don't want to waste my energy on a meaningless exchange of vicious words. Sooner or later, there will come a time when the guards aren't watching closely. When that time comes, I need to have enough energy to kill myself. I would rather die than become someone's plaything. All the Lancaster men have died, and the House of Canyon was able to avert annihilation by giving up on me. Count Krissus said he would use me as his maid, but a young female prisoner of war will hardly be treated like a human being. Even now, the only reason I'm in a tolerable cell despite being a serious criminal charged with high treason is because I am a gift the Emperor is giving away. It feels like my whole body is screaming in pain. My head aches too. I should sleep for now. I'm sure I'll think of something when I wake up. I have to figure out a way to kill myself. The next morning, sunlight fell across her face. She blinked her eyes and thought, I guess old habits really do die hard. I was completely exhausted, yet I woke up at this hour. Today, I will be handed off to Count Krissus. No matter what it takes, I have to find an opportunity to die. That means this is the last sunrise I'll ever get to see in this life. It almost seems like this glimmer of sunlight shining through the window of my small cell is bidding me goodbye. The sky is unbelievably beautiful. The final meal they served was relatively lavish for a criminal. Keeping in mind that this is my last meal, I took each bite with a grain of gratitude. A voice soon echoed through the corridor, calling out, Lauren Lancaster. Daria Lancaster. Come on out. Edele Lancaster. Come out. Edele rose slowly, her mind steady. I pray that nothing atrocious happens to those poor girls, she thought. Now there is only one thing I must do, to remain elegant until the moment I die. As the soldiers brought them toward the carriage, she glanced at it and thought carefully, let's jump off the carriage. If the servant doesn't keep too close an eye on me, I might succeed. If his estate is in the neighborhood where other noble estates are located, there'll be many carriages passing by. If I'm lucky, I could die on impact. Hopefully, the servant who is taking me is inept, but when she looked up, her breath caught. Standing beside the carriage, waiting with quiet authority, was Laslo. Edele rode silently in the carriage, her wrists bound by the weight of her thoughts rather than chains. Sitting across from her was Count Laslo himself, his presence cold yet steady. She thought to herself, I didn't think he would come to get me himself. He probably came so he could personally keep an eye on me. What if he tries to talk to me? He probably doesn't like me. After all, he was the commander of the Emperor's army. How could he look favorably upon me, the wife of a traitor? Laslo reached into his cloak and pulled out his red jacket, his sharp eyes glancing toward her trembling hands. Why are you? She stammered, startled. His reply was short and quiet, then stopped shivering. Her eyes widened as she realized, oh, I guess my hands were trembling. That's why he gave me his cloak. She clutched the fabric, feeling the warmth, and a dark thought crossed her mind. If I throw this cloak toward him, would that buy me enough time to jump off this carriage? Yes, once I jump off, I'll be crushed to death by the carriage's wheels. I can do it. Her breath grew shallow as she counted in her mind. I can hear a distant carriage approaching. I'll count to 3, and then I'll open the door to jump off. 1, 2. Before she could move, his deep voice cut through her panic. It'd be better if you didn't do that, she froze. He knows, she thought bitterly. That's why he put me in the same carriage as him. This man will definitely not leave me alone. Soon the carriage slowed to a stop, and Laslo's voice commanded, "Get off." She looked outside and thought, so this is it. The hell that I will be living in. As she stepped down, her ankle twisted, and she braced for pain, but instead, she felt a firm, gentle hold. She looked up, startled, to find Laslo supporting her in his arms. I always remember what a noble lady mustn't do, she reminded herself. Keep in mind that acting like you're dizzy to fall into the arms of a man is a cheap and vulgar way to win over his heart. Her cheeks flushed. I'm sorry, she whispered quickly, hoping he wouldn't misunderstand. Laslo released her without a word and turned toward the castle. Follow me, he ordered curtly. As they entered the grand yet strangely quiet estate, his voice echoed, "Head housekeeper." I take it nothing happened at the estate while I was away, Edele blinked. Head housekeeper, she thought, confused. A maid rushed forward, smiling nervously. Welcome back, my lord. Haha, nothing out of the ordinary. Your housekeeper, Marcia, is taking good care of the estate, so please do not worry, Edele frowned inwardly. Why isn't there a butler answering him, she wondered. Laslo then said calmly, Did you say you were short on maids? Here's a new maid. Use her as you see fit. First, give her a bath, feed her, and give her a room to sleep in. Marcia blinked in shock. What? But Laslo continued, you can let her use any of the rooms that aren't already occupied. Put her to work starting tomorrow. Edele's heart skipped a beat. He didn't ask her to send me over to his room. He's really using me as a maid, Marcia chuckled dryly. Huh. As short and to the point as ever. Just then, another maid hurried in. Mrs. Bohen, have you heard? Marcia looked up annoyed. What is it, Mina? Mina, breathless with gossip, said, I just heard it from the night outside. That's Duchess Lancaster, who was captured as a prisoner of war. Marcia's eyes widened, then curved into a smirk. Is that so? I can't believe I get to order around a duchess. Mina, do as Lord Krissus ordered. Show her to the room at the end of the corridor. Mina nodded eagerly. Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna go mull over what to do with Miss Lady over there. Edele followed them quietly to her small room, her thoughts a mixture of disbelief and exhaustion. They're kinder than I expected, she thought. I got a change of clothes, and they even brought my food to my room. So I guess people live in rooms this small. It feels as though everything about this situation is telling me, you're not a noble anymore, she shivered. I'm so cold. I guess they don't let the staff use hot water in this house. From now on, I'll probably have to bathe in cold water even during the winter. How odd. It's not like they would have financial problems. But this house is so shabby considering it belongs to a count. She shook her head. No, let's not think about this anymore. Right now, I have to look at the reality in front of me. I'm more fascinated by the fact that I feel hungry after all that I've been through. She picked up a piece of fruit and took a small bite. It's delicious. Her eyes softened. I thought I would never take another bite of fruit ever again. I was going to give up on my life, but it's not like I thought death was my only option. I just didn't want to live as some plaything, to satisfy filthy desires just because I am a spoil of war. She pressed her hand gently to her chest, whispering to herself, I'm alive. Will I be able to taste fruit again tomorrow? Perhaps Count Krissus won't try to lay with me tomorrow either. I want to taste the sweet nectar of fruit again and live quietly, fending for myself. Perhaps I could lead a simple life as a maid here. I'll survive and carry on, waiting for the day I can live in peace. While the torches burned low in the Emperor's castle, a servant entered the grand hall and bowed deeply before Emperor Demarcus. Sir Krissus came to pick up the prisoner himself this evening, he said nervously. Demarcus smirked, swirling the wine in his goblet. I'm sure he did. Tell me, how did he seem to you? Did he look like a man who has been awarded the greatest spoil of war? The servant hesitated. What? I wouldn't know, sir. Demarcus chuckled softly, leaning back on his throne. Everyone else might not know, but I do. I know the true nature of the mercenary king, Laslo. He signed a contract and joined the conquest at the last minute. He only agreed to the contract for the reward money, yet he and his band of mercenaries achieved more than the knights could ever imagine. The emperor's mind drifted back to the day of that contract, remembering how he had grasped Laslo's arm and said, "Laslo, tell me what you want, anything at all." The man had replied in his calm, even tone, "The contract explicitly says how much I am owed. I do not need anything more." DeMarcus remembered laughing at that arrogance or honesty. Despite having all that power, he murmured to his servant, he has no interest in social authority or status. And to top it all off, the audacity to be so brazen. Why, he would make the perfect dog. But to make him more than a loyal hound, I must lure him with something that would captivate him. Making him a count isn't enough, he smiled to himself. Ah, yes, that encounter took place about 2 years ago, at the victory banquet. The memory flashed, nobles whispering among the glitter of gold and crystal. Did that mercenary really become a count? One hissed. Yes, it's true, another replied in disgust. Surely he would want to be treated as our equal. Just thinking about it makes me queasy. What on earth is His Majesty thinking? DeMarcus had watched from his throne, amusement curling his lips. Though he was the principal driving force behind our victory, he recalled, he was not welcome there. But in that moment, Laslo definitely had his eyes on Edele Lancaster. His smirk widened. That is worth a gamble. The die has been cast. Now it's time to watch. His laughter echoed through the empty hall. Brace yourself. I've never lost a bet in gambling. Meanwhile, in the quiet of his manor that night, Count Laslo sat in his study under the flickering lantern light. Darn that snake of an emperor, he muttered under his breath. What's he after? I didn't expect the Duchess and I to cross paths like this. This is going to give me a bad headache. He leaned back and sighed, his thoughts bitter. The only reason I agreed to the Emperor's offer and accepted the pesky noble title was so my little sister could be married off to a decent family. Maybe I shouldn't have been so greedy. Though I became nobility, since I am of common birth and a mercenary, they will hold me in contempt anyway. It's obvious how my sister will be treated in marriage negotiations. His hand tightened around his cup. From what I've witnessed so far, marriage among nobles is vulgar. A father who sells off his daughter to an old man to make connections with one of the 4 most prominent families. An old duke who already has a lover and grown children, but is still getting remarried. And in these crude negotiations, the lady who was sold off at the highest price, Edele Lancaster. His mind drifted to her image, calm, beautiful, resigned. Even though she was being married off to that old coot as a second wife, she was still smiling. If she were really against the marriage, she would have run away. Did she exchange her youth for power because of her greed? But why couldn't I take my eyes off of her? It's not like I would ever have the chance to speak with her. Unlike me, who became nobility overnight, she was born into nobility and lived her whole life as a noble. I thought I would never get to see her again. But that very same Edele Lancaster is now at my house as a maid. He exhaled sharply. That devious emperor. He gave the ex-duchess to me as a warning to those who conspired against him, or something along those lines. If I had refused to take her, she would have been sold off, or she may have killed herself. Those were probably her 2 options. She was found in the Duke's empty castle after everyone else had fled. Count Canyon cut all ties to his own daughter to keep his own neck. Both the Count and the Duke forsook her. She tried to kill herself because of that. Nobles and their pride. I don't get what it is she's trying to protect by throwing her life away. He lifted his lantern, watching the flame flicker, and muttered, but if I keep her around, I might find a use for her. If she could break from her past, her life may not be the worst it could be. He blew out the light, and the room fell into darkness. The next morning, the clatter of basins echoed in the manor's laundry room. Housekeeper Marcia tossed a bundle of worn linens onto the table, her voice sharp. Look here, Duchess. What is this? So I guess the house you're from used dirty old rags like these? Were you too afraid to get your soft hands dirty when you were washing these? Edele kept her head low and nodded. I'll do better, she said quietly. Marcia sneered. Of course you will. Hey, Salia. Yes, a timid voice answered. Are you sure you trained her properly? Marcia demanded. Don't go easy on this one, and keep a close eye on her. This wench is a traitor from the House of Lancaster, our master captured. Who knows what she might try to cook up? A maid whispered nervously. Are you certain? There won't be any blowback even if you say things like that. Marcia scoffed. What are you afraid of? You think the Duke will come back from the grave for his poor wife? There's nothing to worry about, so treat her however you'd like. Edele's heart ached as she pressed her hand to her chest. Head housekeeper Madame Marcia Bohen, so this is what she meant yesterday. I can't believe I get to order around a duchess. I guess she wants to show everyone how great she is by overpowering a former duchess like myself. She's been like this from the moment she introduced me to the rest of the house staff. Does she want me to break into tears? This is all very unnecessary, because there's probably no one else out there who's happier about the demise of the House of Lancaster. But more importantly, Salia sighed after Marcia left. She's finally gone. I can't believe she has the nerve to speak of the dead like that. Layla, another maid, muttered. Bohen being rude like this isn't anything surprising. We're already busy as it is, so I don't get why she comes to give us a hard time. Edele listened quietly, her mind calm yet weary. Salia is the maid in charge of the laundry room, she thought. Madame Bohen specifically picked her to train me, a former duchess, putting her in an uncomfortable position. If we get picked on again because I didn't do the laundry properly, it would make everyone else's life harder. So let's finish what's in front of me right now. I don't care about being ridiculed. The problem is, I'm not sure I have the stamina to withstand all this work. All of this is possible because I'm alive, so let's just be grateful. Meanwhile, far from there, her father, Count Dustin Canyon, sat in his office, slamming his fist against the desk. Edele, that useless girl, he shouted furiously. She's a worthless, useless excuse for a daughter. His voice echoed through the empty halls, but Edele, miles away, did not hear it. She was too busy scrubbing, enduring, and quietly holding onto the fragile thread of life that fate had left her. The teacup shattered as it struck the flower pot, shards scattering across the polished floor. Dustin Canyon's hand trembled with rage as he glared at the pieces. A man burst into the room, panting, his son, William. Father, what do we do now? Edele has become that mercenary's maid, he blurted. But Dustin cut him off sharply, his voice filled with venom. William, don't mention that worthless girl anymore. The ingrate who doesn't even have the decency to take her own life before she is humiliated. After all I went through to keep this house intact, his voice cracked with both fury and desperation. His mind drifted to that fateful day before the Emperor. Please believe me, Your Highness, he had pleaded, his knees pressed against the cold marble floor. Duke Lancaster blackmailed me into helping him commit treason. He took my daughter, Edele, against my will and kept her hostage, so as a father, how could I refuse him? Emperor DeMarcus had looked down at him, eyes cold, lips curling with disdain. I see. If you insist that the House of Canyon is innocent, then I'm sure you have nothing to say about what becomes of Duchess Edele Lancaster, he had said. Dustin had forced a bitter chuckle through gritted teeth. Why, of course, Your Highness. Once a daughter is married, she is no longer part of the family. She has nothing to do with us. I got on my knees and begged for mercy, not to mention offering the Duke's family secrets on top of half of all my assets. I survived despite the ridicule and humiliation I had to suffer through. Now, in the present, Dustin's eyes gleamed with resentment as he thought of the Emperor. DeMarcus of the Tiberine imperial family, he mused darkly. He took the throne after his incompetent father and brought on a commoner to bolster the throne's power. He isn't afraid of sinister and malevolent ways so long as the ends justify the means. He's trying to make an example out of my house to keep the high nobles in line. He turned Edele, that incompetent fool, into that dirty mercenary's toy, to tarnish the reputation of the Canyon House and to warn the others. His lips twisted into a sneer. Yes, that is exactly what he was after all along, he muttered. His thoughts burned hotter. He dare ridicule me like this? You think you can get away with manipulating me, the great Dustin? He straightened and barked, William, Geoffrey. Keep a low profile for the time being. Since the emperor got himself a trusty hound, he has nothing to fear. Yes, father, William answered quietly. Dustin looked down at the shattered porcelain at his feet and crushed it beneath his heel. You just wait and see, he swore silently. I will build myself up again and make sure no one can ever look down on the House of Canyon, no matter what it takes. The next morning, the sun filtered gently through the manor windows as Edele walked through the courtyard, a wooden bucket full of damp clothes in her hands. Edele, wait for us, called a familiar voice. She turned to see Salia and Layla, both carrying baskets. Salia. And Layla, she said, blinking in surprise. Salia chuckled, brushing back her hair. You're on your way to hang the sheets to dry, right? It won't be easy to do on your own. Let's do it together since we're headed there too. Edele smiled faintly and nodded. Together, the three women worked quietly in the soft morning breeze, the sound of flapping sheets filling the air. As she worked, Edele's thoughts wandered. It's already been 10 days since I came to this house. If someone were to ask me what I've done, I could proudly tell them that although I am a mere spoil of war, I worked hard as a maid in the laundry room. Because of it, I've gotten rather good at doing the laundry. However, if I had to complain, her thought was abruptly interrupted by a sharp, piercing voice. Hey, Duchess. Your laundry is a complete mess today too. Are you intentionally ignoring me, or are you just that dull? It was Marcia Bohen again. It would be Madame Bohen, who keeps coming around to pick on me, Edele thought with a quiet sigh. Speak up if you've got something to say, Marcia snapped. Edele looked up calmly. Excuse me, Madame Bohen, she began gently. But before Marcia could unleash another insult, Salia stepped forward. Considering that she only just began learning, she's doing quite well, she said firmly. I'm training her just fine, so why don't you return to your station and do your own job? Marcia's face flushed red. What I'm trying to say here is, she began, but Salia cut her off. I'm the one in charge of the laundry room. We're already swamped as it is, so please stop doing this. Being busy is one thing, but then why don't you show her how it's done? Here's a dirty rag. Why don't you show her how to get it nice and clean? Marcia sputtered with indignation, but turned on her heel. I may be leaving you now, but I'll be watching. Do your job properly, she barked as she stormed off. Edele blinked, surprised by Salia's boldness. Is it okay for you to say that, Salia? She asked quietly. Salia shrugged. What's there not to be okay with? I didn't do this for you, so don't worry about it. If she keeps dropping by like that, it's a nuisance for us too. Still, thank you, Edele murmured sincerely. Salia waved it off. Well, it's not like she's gonna try to get back at us, so don't worry. Our meals might get a little skimpy out of nowhere, but even that should go away in a couple of days. She's just that kind of person. Okay, we have a lot of work to do, so let's get back to it. Edele's gaze softened as she watched Salia and Layla work beside her. The head housekeeper who is harassing me, the former Duchess. Salia, who helps me as if she doesn't care that I'm the spoil of war. And the other maids who are suffering because of me. I haven't even had the chance to speak to them or ask them what they think about all this. I hope I'm not causing them too much trouble. That night, as the moonlight poured through her small window, Edele sat on the edge of her narrow bed, rubbing her blistered hands gently. I wonder if they're all okay, she whispered. Maybe. They don't have the leisure to think about anyone else. There is just so much work that my hands are all blistered and chapped. I worry about the maids too, but Count Krissus hasn't asked for me in the last 10 days. It's almost as if he's forgotten all about me. I'm just relieved I could live as a maid. Would it anger the dead for me to say this? But I'm just happy and grateful to be free of the Lancasters. I'll do my best tomorrow too. I pray that today ends peacefully. I pray that the night remains calm. I hope to take another bite of an apple tomorrow. As her voice faded, a sudden knock startled her. Her eyes widened, breath catching in her throat. Who could it be at this hour? She thought in alarm. It can't be, but what if Count Krissus changed his mind? Is he here to sleep with me? Her heart pounded as she rose slowly from her bed, the wooden floor cold beneath her bare feet. She took a trembling breath and whispered, "Who is it?" A soft voice came from the other side of the door. It's Daisy from the next room. Could I come in to talk to you? Edele blinked in surprise. Daisy? I heard Daisy is the youngest maid in this house. She hesitated for a moment, then opened the door. There stood Daisy, a small, cheerful girl with an earnest smile. I'm sorry to come by so late at night, she said politely. Edele studied her face, thinking, I've passed her a couple of times in the hallways, but we barely said hi before. She stepped aside and said softly, Come on in. When Daisy entered, she fidgeted with her hands and blushed slightly. Oh, it's nothing really, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. There's just something I want to give you. It's ointment and cream for when you're hurt. Edele stared at the small jars Daisy held out, eyes wide with confusion. What? But why are you giving me these? She asked. Daisy's smile turned shy. I heard you moaning in pain every night. The walls are terribly thin here, so you hear pretty much everything. You know, since I'm right next door, Edele gasped. I'm sorry, I had no idea. Daisy shook her head quickly. It's fine with me. I can sleep through the noise. But I heard Madame Bohen is giving you a hard time. You probably haven't gotten used to your work yet, and if you're in pain all the time, that can't be easy. So I just wanted to give you these. Edele felt her throat tighten. In the world I lived in, doing something just because was unheard of. I can't believe such a young girl is so thoughtful and caring about those around her. I didn't know there could be eyes of such sincerity without even a shadow of deceit. She reached out and gently took the ointment. Thank you, Miss Daisy, she said warmly. Daisy's eyes widened and she stammered. Did you call me miss? You can just call me Daisy, Edele smiled faintly. Then you can just call me Edele, too, Daisy blushed, her cheeks turning red. I'm not sure I can do that. Then is it okay for me to call you sister? Edele's eyes softened, and she nodded, smiling gently. Should I help you put the ointment and cream on your shoulder and back? Daisy asked. I think I can handle it myself, Edele said with a faint smile. Daisy chuckled. You won't be able to reach your back. We're both girls, so there's no need to be shy. Then, thank you, Edele said softly. As Daisy helped her, Edele thought, it's a shame I don't have a diary. If I had one, I would have written that I made a new friend today. The next morning, the breakfast spread was noticeably smaller, just as Salia had predicted. I told you so, Salia said with a wry smile. Edele looked at the tray and thought, at least there's still fruit. Maybe it's because of the medicine Daisy gave me. My back feels a little better. I used to be forced to fast regularly to maintain my figure. This is fine. I'm sure today will be fine too. In his study, Count Laslo Krissus held a letter and read it aloud, his deep voice echoing in the room. Dear Count Krissus, the loyal heart of a lion. He folded it slowly, eyes narrowing. Bring her to me. To the sitting room on the first floor. Now, he ordered. Edele followed the servant through the corridor, her thoughts uneasy. He called for me out of the blue. There will be other people there, so I'm sure nothing will happen, but I wonder what he wants from me. Go on in, the servant said, holding the door open. Edele took a breath. I was sure today would be a good day, too, she thought, then stepped inside. It's Edele. I heard you asked for me, she said quietly. Count Krissus sat at the table, the morning light casting sharp lines across his face. Take a seat, he said. She obeyed, lowering her gaze. Count Laslo Krissus, she thought nervously. I feel overwhelmed every time I see him. He leaned forward slightly. Let me ask you something. Are you familiar with Dowager Marchioness Barbara Celestine? Her eyes widened. What? Barbara, she began, then caught herself. Wait a second. Why is he mentioning the Dowager Marchioness Celestine? Do you not know her? Laslo asked again. Edele's pulse quickened. Is it okay for him to know that she and I are acquainted? She replied carefully, Dowager Marchioness Celestine. I do know her, but I've only had tea a few times with her. Then it must have been some tea, Laslo said dryly. Why else would that rigid woman write to me, a bloodthirsty mercenary, begging for mercy? A letter from the Marchioness Dowager, Edele exclaimed, eyes wide. Laslo handed her the letter. She took it with trembling hands and read, her heart swelling with emotion. I can't believe my dearest friend Barbara wrote me a letter. The words blurred as tears gathered in her eyes. I couldn't help but write to you after hearing what happened. The entire Lancaster house kept her in the dark, so she doesn't know what happened behind closed doors. Please do not push Ms. Edele into an even greater dismay. So many people who used to know me as a duchess turned their backs on me. But I couldn't blame them. It made perfect sense. I was guilty of treason of all things. I assumed everyone had abandoned me, but she genuinely believes in my innocence and is worried for me. I thought if I just endured everything without complaints, I could protect myself. But I experience kindness and warm generosity from those who barely even know me. And now, a friend from my past comforts me so I can feel her sincere attempt to console me. But what will Count Krissus think of this? What if he mistakes Barbara to be an ally to the Duke of Lancaster, who schemed against the Emperor? Edele lifted her eyes, voice trembling. Dowager Marchioness Celestine is a very sympathetic person. Our families are not affiliated in any way, and our friendship is nothing more than a private relationship. So I hope you do not misunderstand this letter. Laslo leaned back, his tone unexpectedly soft. Are you afraid I might hound the old lady? I don't know why everyone assumes the worst of me. Edele's heart raced. She stood abruptly, saying, That's not it. That's not what I meant at all. I apologize if what I said offended you in any way. Laslo's lips curved faintly. See? You're trembling like I'm about to cut someone's head off. His voice faltered, and he muttered, almost to himself, I shouldn't have said that to you just now. Edele blinked, startled. I've never seen him make a face like that, she thought. Is he sorry? Laslo's thoughts churned like a storm. To this woman, I am the man who captured and slaughtered the members of the Lancaster house. She's probably disgusted by me, and might even think I'm some cruel and vicious monster. And what do I say to her? Hey, you're trembling like I'm about to cut someone's head off. I can't believe I said that. You insensitive fool. He sighed quietly, his gaze flickering toward her. I just wanted to know why Dowager Marchioness Celestine is going to such lengths for her. What is she thinking right now? Edele finally broke the silence. My lord, all you've done is follow His Majesty's orders and claim victory. It is an anomaly that I should even be alive. There is no reason you should feel uneasy talking about any of this. Laslo's eyes lingered on her as she spoke with that calm, measured tone. How could she remain so composed while saying such things? He wondered. She may find it difficult to blame me right to my face, but I can't even see a faint shadow of resentment in her eyes. I guess I should say she is a true duchess. Flawless composure and careful choice of words, meticulously shaped through lessons. Her ability to repress her emotions. He clenched his fists slightly. I may be a count by title, but I remain the same man I used to be. I see. Is what I'm feeling right now shame? He cleared his throat and said, Anyway, I want you to reply to this letter. She wouldn't believe it if I wrote back defending myself. Edele blinked. Me? She asked. Laslo nodded. She smiled faintly. What should I say? Whatever you'd like, he replied, still a little dazed. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, Oh, I would like you to include this in your letter. Tell her I won't be treating you the way the public expects. The public's expectation? Edele asked, her brows rising. She tilted her head and, with an almost playful boldness, said, Oh, please don't call for me during the night and rough-handle me. Thank you. Laslo froze. What are the nobles saying about me now? He thought furiously. I made it very clear I would use her as a maid. I have a little sister. How could they think I would do something so brutal? Those high and mighty nobles are the ones behaving like animals. How could they say such things when I haven't even held hands with a woman before? A small bird of a woman at that, too. That's it. She may appear strong, but she's so frail you almost feel sorry for her. She can't even stand to touch a lowly mercenary like me, therefore, I shall never lay a finger on this woman. Edele smiled with genuine gratitude. My lord, thank you so much. Laslo stiffened. Never. He vowed silently. Later that night, Daisy shivered as she rubbed her arms. It's cold. But it's not like we could skip showering because of it. Edele chuckled. It's too bad. Good work today. She watched the steam rise from the basin and thought, I guess they've never had hot water in this house before. Daisy knew exactly where to put the ointment to feel better despite being so young. I wonder how long she's been working here. I should be nicer to Daisy. As they parted for the night, Daisy waved. Good night. Sweet dreams, Edele smiled. Good night. Entering her room, Edele's eyes fell upon a neat stack of paper on her desk. What's that? Count Krissus sent over paper for me to write the letter on. He meant what he said earlier. She recalled her own hesitant request from before. I'm sorry to ask, but could you lend me some paper and a pen? I don't have any, and his calm response. Don't worry about that. Her heart warmed at the memory. She hurried to the table. What should I write about first? There's so much I want to tell her, but he'll probably read my letter before sending it out. I can't even write my beloved and esteemed Barbara like before. She dipped the pen into ink and began to write. Dear Dowager Marchioness Celestine, Barbara, you were always concerned for me and took such good care of me. I don't know how I could thank you for remembering me and showing sympathy to a sinner like me. I still remember the first time I met you, 7 years ago, at Countess Roderick's tea party. In her mind, the scene unfolded again. Nobles murmured all around. Dowager Marchioness Celestine has arrived. I can't believe she's really here, Edele whispered to a nearby woman. Is there something wrong with her coming here? The two ladies beside her exchanged uneasy glances. Oh dear, House of Canyons. One woman nearby grabbed Edele's hand. Edele, this is Countess Roderick's tea party. The two ladies don't get along very well. You'll see, they're as different as night and day. Then why would Countess Roderick invite her? Edele asked, puzzled. Obviously, the woman began, but her words were drowned out as a voice announced, Dowager Marchioness Celestine, Barbara M. Celestine, has arrived. Edele looked toward the entrance. That isn't the sound of her heels. She's limping on one leg. Does she have a prosthetic leg? The sound of her walking echoes louder here than it would in other halls. Is this why she was invited here? Her stomach twisted in discomfort. I don't know what conflict the two ladies have between them, but using another person's disability like this is unacceptable. Without hesitation, Edele rushed toward Barbara, smiling brightly. My goodness, my lady. What a coincidence. Do you remember me? You helped me when my carriage broke down in town. You left, refusing to accept payment, so I was hoping to see you again. I had no idea you were Dowager Marchioness Celestine, the crowd murmured. Wow, did that really happen? One whispered. Yes, it did, Barbara replied calmly. I haven't been to many social occasions, so I failed to recognize you at the time. Another woman laughed awkwardly. The Dowager Marchioness showed such generosity. How wonderful. Edele smiled at Barbara. I appreciate you helping me back then. I hope this seems natural. I hope my over-the-top welcome is enough to cover up the uncomfortable noise and silence. Barbara leaned closer and whispered, Well, aren't you a nosy young lady? I'm sorry if it offended you, Edele said softly. Not at all, Barbara murmured back. Edele thought back on that day. Back then, I was young. I was proud of myself for helping an elderly lady in trouble. Around them, gossip buzzed like flies. Have you heard? Viscountess Oberon decided to divorce her husband. Isn't the House of Oberon on the verge of bankruptcy after being scammed? I heard the Viscountess has been working as an interpreter outside of the house. Don't tell me she's asking for a divorce since she's making money, another sneered. How could she hurt her husband's authority like that by earning money outside like that? Oh my, after her husband was generous enough to withstand all that, she's still asking for a divorce. Perhaps she's taken a lover on the side. Edele's expression darkened. I had no idea how easily the social scene can damage a person's reputation. She has been neglecting her duties at home, and one lady began before Barbara interrupted sharply. It would seem that you are much more conservative than when I was young. Barbara's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd, steady and sharp. It would seem that you are much more conservative than when I was young. Why should she be criticized for becoming successful on her own merit? Her house was like a sinking ship, so she did everything she could to keep it afloat. She wanted to do better, so she worked hard. Edele looked at her, eyes wide. What's wrong with ambition like that? Does that mean it's okay to be ambitious? There's nothing wrong with living like that. The woman with red hair laughed mockingly. I think you speak too boldly. How can you compare what she does with a working man? Viscountess Oberon, who failed her duties as the lady of the house, Barbara interrupted with a sigh, her tone firm. She is a progressive woman who earns a living to make up for what her husband failed to provide. You should all be fighting for your rights, but here you are, dragging others through the mud, the nobles whispered among themselves. No wonder they say she devoured her own husband. Apparently, she would lecture her husband on his affairs since she was young. Another chimed in softly. She must see herself in Viscountess Oberon. Don't mind her, Countess Roderick. We feel the same way you do. Then shall we move on to something else now? After the hectic tea party, Edele called out by the main gate, "Wait, Lady Celestine. Could you spare me some time?" Barbara turned to her. What is it, Lady Canyon? Edele bowed her head slightly. Earlier, I was wrong. I was out of line to feel sorry for you. I had no idea you were stronger than anyone in the room. I want to become as strong as you, Lady Celestine. Could I come visit you occasionally, if you don't mind? Barbara smiled softly. That sounds wonderful. I would love for us to have such discussions. Since then, they spent much time together, speaking often, laughing over tea and sharing their hearts. Before long, they became each other's dearest friends. Sweet Barbara probably loved Edele more than anyone else in the world. Had I only taken what she told me closer to heart, perhaps things would be a lot different than now, Edele thought bitterly. Her memory replayed their last encounter, Barbara's voice fierce and filled with conviction. Edele, don't ever get used to making sacrifices. Marrying the old Lord Lancaster. You must liberate yourself from the manipulative men who are trying to control you. Edele had trembled as she replied, but if I don't do as my father tells me to, my only other option is death. Barbara had reached out to her, eyes burning with urgency. Why would you die? Please, Edele. Look at me. If you would just ask for help, I will help you with everything. That was the last time she ever saw her friend. I'm sorry, Barbara, Edele thought as she wrote. I only hope that this letter would give you some peace of mind and ease your worries. Elsewhere, Marcia's shrill voice filled the corridor. Really? Count Krissus summoned Edele. A maid nodded quickly. Yes, Madame Bohen. But he summoned her to the drawing room during the day, and she just left right now. I guess it wasn't anything serious then. Marcia's face twisted with jealousy. She is such a minx. She's not to be taken lightly. Just look at how Salia is taking her side. Another maid giggled. Salia is sort of weird, though. The same goes for Layla and Daisy too. Birds of a feather, right? Marcia clenched her fists. I'll have to make sure they know their place and keep their heads low. Those insolent brats who won't even pay their tributes, I'll make it crystal clear to them. The maid blushed and whispered about that. Some of the staff have been complaining about having to shower with cold water. They even got suspicious that I wasn't showering with them. What? You kept your mouth shut, right? Marcia barked. Of course I did, the maid laughed nervously. I made up an excuse. Warm water is a privilege reserved for you and me. Why else would I be paying 100 lingtons every month? Marcia smirked to herself. When I sell off some items from this house, it'll more than make up for my losses now. She pointed a finger at the maid. You'd better watch your mouth. If Lady Linnea finds out about this, you know what I mean, right? Of course. Besides, she's not interested in such things, the maid reassured her. Marcia's smile widened. Yes, of course things will be just fine. Lady Linnea trusts my every word, and Count Krissus is hardly home. This entire household might as well be in my pocket. Elsewhere, Edele handed a sealed envelope to a servant. It's the letter his lordship asked me to write. Please pass it along. I will, he said with a bow. In the laundry room, Salia sighed heavily as sweat rolled down her temple. Why is there no end to this darn laundry? She's making us do such unnecessary things, Layla shrugged. I guess Madame Bohen thought something didn't sit right again, Salia frowned. Where is she anyway? Well, it's obvious, Layla said dryly. Meanwhile, Marcia was brushing the hair of her lady. She's probably whispering weird things to Lady Linnea again. Is that true? Yes, my lady, Marcia replied smoothly. Have I ever told you something that wasn't true? Leave matters concerning high society and managing this house to me. Lady Linnea turned her head slightly. Okay, Please do as you told me. This estate must run perfectly, like any other house of nobility. Marcia smiled. Yes, my lady. In another corner of the house, Daisy rubbed her aching shoulders. Ow, my shoulders. My arms almost fell out wiping and mopping today. There isn't an inch of my body that doesn't ache. Edele looked at her with gentle concern. You did a great job today, Daisy. Are we expecting guests? Why did we mop down the entire house out of the blue? Daisy shook her head. We don't get guests in this house. I guess the head housekeeper's just in a mood. Edele blinked. Actually, she's right. It's already been a month since I've been living here, but I've never once seen a guest. Count Krissus is a nobleman belonging to the Emperor's inner circle, and yet there are no visitors that come around the estate. Is it because of all the distasteful rumors about him? She paused and thought. I also had a negative first impression of him. But considering how generous he has been with me, and his general attitude, he doesn't seem like a terrible man. The only reason I can live this ordinary life is... Anyway, Daisy cut in, her tone chipper. Even if we don't have any guests, sometimes we do this sort of thing because of Lady Linnea. What? Edele jolted. Daisy offered her a piece of bread. Lady Linnea, Count Krissus's younger sister. You've heard of her, right? Here, have some bread. Oh, I did hear that a lot of staff quit because of Lady Linnea, Edele said softly. That's right, Daisy replied. When Lady Linnea gets moody, it can be hard to bear. She's never had to work a day in her life, so I don't understand why she's so concerned with our work. Is that so? Edele murmured. Since he was young, Count Krissus has always made a lot of money, Daisy explained. That's why they've never skipped a meal before, even though they were commoners. That pretty much says everything. Honestly, if her brother worked so hard to become nobility, she could just live her life being forever grateful. I just don't understand why she's so immature. Edele thought quietly. The Krissus siblings who became nobility overnight, and a former duchess who became a maid overnight. It's like we're perfect opposites of each other. I learned how to wash the laundry for the first time in this house. Before I learned how to do it, I didn't know anything about it. Since this is their first time in such a high place, maybe they don't really know how to lead their lives as nobles. Despite being in the Emperor's inner circle, the estate of Count Krissus stood eerily quiet, its grand halls stripped of warmth and polish. The walls whispered neglect, and though the Count, head of the family, wielded immense influence, he seemed indifferent to the state of his home. The only lady of the house fretted endlessly over the maids' every movement, as if control over them could substitute for order in the estate. But perhaps they weren't strange at all. Perhaps they simply didn't know any better. With no butler to oversee the mansion, the head maid now held all the power, ruling the staff with whispers and manipulation. One afternoon, Edele turned to Daisy, curiosity softening her tone. Daisy, did the other maids quit all because of Lady Krissus? Daisy shook her head. No, there have been plenty of people who quit because of Madame Bohen, but if they blame Lady Krissus, his lordship gives a good recommendation letter, so... Edele remembered the Count's cold, measured voice during a past encounter. Here is your letter of recommendation. Thank you for your services. Daisy's cheeks flushed slightly as she giggled. He seems scary, but he's nice, isn't he? Edele thought silently, she's right. He does come off as scary. Still, he's a good person, but there are some serious problems here. Her gaze swept across the crumbling corridors. It wouldn't matter if this was a house on the verge of collapsing, but the House of Krissus is a new noble family. As long as Emperor D. Marcus Tuberan's power remains strong, his right-hand man, Count Laslo Krissus, must serve his duty to the fullest as well. Her mind drifted. That means Count Krissus must find himself a suitable ally as soon as possible. Maybe he could marry someone. Marriage is a great way to survive in high society. Did His Majesty not offer to introduce someone for him? Anyway, whoever he marries, I hope it's someone who pities me. The next day came swiftly. Lady Linnea stood by the parlor window, her sharp gaze fixed on Edele as she entered. So you're the famed Edele Lancaster? Her voice dripped with curiosity and disdain. Edele bowed politely. Count Krissus and Lady Krissus both make their summons out of the blue, she thought. They don't look much alike. Softly, she began, I'm just Edele now, Since the House of Lancaster is no, I know that much, Linnea snapped before she could finish. Edele blinked, startled. Is she mad at me? Now that I think about it, I don't even know how old Lady Krissus is. She might be in her late teens. She doesn't really feel very threatening. Linnea leaned forward, her tone laced with mockery. So I heard Duke Lancaster was an old geezer. How did you marry someone like that? Did you want to become a duchess that badly? Edele's reply came quietly. Unfortunately, I didn't have a say in my marriage. I had to follow if my father ordered me. Linnea's eyes widened in indignation. That's awful. How could you call someone like that a father? Edele lowered her gaze. You're right, my lady. I wonder how my father didn't know something even a young girl understands. So then, Linnea pressed, how did you share a bedchamber with such an old man? He had a long-time concubine, Edele replied calmly. So I never shared a bedchamber with him. Concubine? Linnea gasped. Since she was in charge of the Duke's rebellion funds, Edele continued, she is probably dead now too. Linnea's voice trembled. Then what was your role in that house? Edele's expression softened as old memories surfaced. There was once a time when I was just dying to prove my worth. I thought if I proved my competence, if I fulfilled all the duties of my role, I thought I could be better. However, she looked up and said, I only filled in the role of Duchess to uphold the appearance of a perfect house, while taking care of some undesirable tasks here and there. Foolish Edele, she thought bitterly. What a foolish life I led. Linnea narrowed her eyes. You? Why are you smiling like that? You're looking down on me too, aren't you? Pardon, Edele asked, startled. Linnea's voice rose, cracking with insecurity. You might as well be a slave now, so why are you smiling? You were thinking that I'm trying to act like the lady of the house when I'm just a lowly commoner girl, weren't you? Because you still think you're the perfect lady. Edele froze. Why is she yelling at me all of a sudden? Did I say something to upset you? She asked softly. If you would tell me what I did wrong, I could you, Linnea shouted. You're looking down on me. Kneel this instant. How dare you look down on your employer? Without hesitation, Edele knelt and bowed her head. I am sorry. I suppose I should stand since you did not order me to sit. Linnea trembled. What are you doing? Have you no pride? You were a duchess. What are you doing in front of a mere count's sister? Edele's voice was calm, almost distant. I am no longer a duchess. Pride and honor of being a noble. Oh, what worthless value it has. What is the true pride and honor one must hold on to? My world has already turned upside down, she thought as she raised her head slowly. You are my employer, she said gently, and my knees aren't that expensive. Linnea's lip quivered. How dare you? How dare you talk back to me? Do you think I don't know what you nobles think? You mock and ridicule people after inviting them. You liars. Do you even know who you owe your lives to? My brother trained those mercenaries who ran like wild dogs and won the war for you. So then why? Edele watched her quietly. Just as I thought, Lady Linnea was seeing the other nobles through me. Get out of my room now, Linnea screamed. I don't want to see you. As Edele stepped out, her mind swirled. She's standing at the center of the high society I left behind. She could have remained free and lovely. Softly, she murmured to herself, somehow, she reminds me of you. Actually, her name is similar too. In the silence of her thoughts, a voice echoed from memory. Her sister's, fragile and trembling. I don't want any more of this, Edele. She saw the image of a young girl crying, hands trembling. I can't take it anymore. Edele had tried to comfort her then. Everything will be better once you're married. If you just hang on a little more, but her sister had shouted, slapping her hands away. No, Edele, you can't stand this because you and I are different. I've already endured as much as I possibly could. My life isn't worth living anymore. Edele closed her eyes, her heart aching. My little sister, who is no longer with me, Lynn Canyon. There wasn't much history to the House of Canyon. Edele's great-grandfather, once a reckless gambler, had won a parcel of land that happened to hold a sapphire mine. Overnight, his fortune changed. Newly rich, he offered an enormous amount of gold to the emperor, who was struggling with the royal family's financial troubles. In gratitude, The emperor granted him the title of count. Thus, the House of Canyon was born nobles of sudden wealth, but no lineage, dignity, or refinement. Dustin Canyon, Edele's father, raised his daughters under the shadow of that insecurity. "Have you memorized the 4 most prestigious families now?" he barked at young Lin one afternoon. "Yes, father," she answered timidly. "The House of Duke Lancaster, the House of Duke Barrington." "Wrong, you foolish girl," he thundered. Lin flinched. She was only 10. Turning to her older daughter, he demanded, "Edele, name the 4 houses." Edele, 12 years old, straightened and replied, "Yes, father. The other 3 are the House of Duke Barrington, the House of Marquis Tolaine, and the House of Marquis Winblair." "Yes, that's correct," Dustin said sharply. "Those 4 houses hold power and authority that even the royal family cannot take lightly. So never forget, you will have to marry into one of them so no one will ever look down on the Canyons. Do you understand?" "Yes, father," Edele responded firmly. After he left, Lin looked up at her sister. "Hey, Edele," she whispered. "Will I become more like you when I'm 12? I feel like such a fool." Edele's eyes softened. "What are you talking about, Lin? You're not a fool." "But that's what father said earlier," Lin murmured. Edele sighed gently. "Well, you know how harsh he can be with his words. He only meant to encourage you to do better." "It doesn't mean he really thinks you're a fool." Lin hesitated. "You think so?" "Of course," Edele said, grabbing her hand. "Should we go downstairs and have some cookies instead?" "I'll give you some of mine, too." Lin blushed faintly. "Edele, when we're finished with the cookies, let's study together. I'll help you out, so don't worry." Lin smiled shyly. "Yeah, sure. With you, I'm okay with anything." But their small joy was short-lived. The cook intercepted them at the door. "Return to your room," she said sternly. "Lady Lin is not allowed any snacks starting today." "What? Why?" Edele asked. "Lady Lin did terribly on her test yesterday," the cook explained. "Count Canyon has ordered us not to give her any snacks until she earns the right to them." "How could he?" Edele began, but the cook interrupted. "Lady Lin, have you even completed your homework for today?" Lin's voice dropped to a whisper. "No." Then, before Edele could stop her, she turned and dashed toward her room. "Then you enjoy your snack, Edele. I'll be in my room doing homework." "Lin," Edele called after her, but she didn't turn back. Edele's thoughts churned painfully. Father has always been strict, but lately, he's become cruel. Why only to us? Why is there nothing I can do? My heart aches, and I'm so angry. I wish I could grow up sooner for Lin's sake. Maybe everything will be better once we're married." She clenched her fists. "If I become a perfect lady, a graceful bride, beautiful, slim, always smiling, if I make father proud, maybe then he'll stop being cruel. Maybe then I'll be free." Years passed, but the cruelty only deepened. One day, Dustin's voice roared through the manor, shaking the walls. "Lin Canyon, you're already 16. When are you going to get your act together? Do you think you'll attract any men, let alone from the 4 great houses? You're just a waste of my money. Your sister has already made her debut in society, making connections. When will you be of any use to me? Why can't you become someone I wouldn't be ashamed to let out of this house?" Edele stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding. If I just become the person father wants me to be, would Lin like it if I gave her something beautiful? Would that make her happy? She tried to believe that someday, somehow, she'd make things better. But in her room, Lin sat on the floor, surrounded by scattered books and papers, sobbing. "Edele, I just can't do this anymore," she cried. "I don't think I could ever become a noble lady like you. The only thing I want is to fly away like that bird." Days later, the mansion fell silent. Dustin's voice, cold and unfeeling, broke the stillness. "Lin is dead." For a moment, no one moved. Edele's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? Wait, what do you mean?" Dustin looked at her with irritation. "She's dead. Do I have to repeat myself?" She accidentally fell from the 3rd-floor balcony while looking out. That's all there is to it. Make sure word doesn't get out. Edele's knees gave out. I can't believe she did this. During such a busy time, she thought numbly. Later, sitting alone on her floor, she whispered, "Lin." Why did Lin? Her tears fell soundlessly. "I can't take it anymore. I have feelings, thoughts, a voice. How much longer must I endure this? I've already endured as much as I possibly could. My life isn't worth living anymore." The fragile hope she had nurtured after meeting Barbara withered into despair once more. And just as father wished, she married into the House of Lancaster, a union without love, only duty. "You know, Lin, I always thought of escaping like you did," she thought. "But with you by my side, I thought I could hold on. No one can bear the weight of a life they never asked for." And now, as she looked at Lady Linnea, angry, insecure, and desperate for validation, Edele's heart ached. If she's in pain, I wish I could teach her how to endure it, but am I even in a position to do that? My heart feels so heavy, and I'm so mad at how helpless I am.
Behind every video are sleepless nights and countless hopes. Your one subscribe isn't just support, it's a heartbeat that keeps our dream alive. Please subscribe. Your one click can change everything.